everybody. My name is Jason Forbes, and thanks for taking the time. Hopefully the audience will expand somewhat over the next few minutes. I'm going to talk as much about the marketplace and changing millennial behaviors in the marketplace as really kind of context for some of the monetization opportunities that were just described. So first kind of piece is really around some massively accelerating changes in terms of how millennials in particular are engaging with TV content. So you can see here some of these kind of problem statements. The market opportunity that we feel that the vast majority of TV networks are missing right now in both the US and the UK is understanding that the conversation around their shows has shifted to social. So there are many TV networks in the US, ABC, part of Disney, and Fox as great examples that produce great video content, great TV content, but aren't investing the cycles to understand how millennials actually discover TV shows. So it's moved away from a TV guide to search discovery to increasingly social discovery, where many millennials now actually discover new content via their Facebook timeline, a tweet stream, or an RSS feed. And that's a massive problem because there's a failure at the coalface of TV networks to understand how millennials, as a 23% of the US market, are actually engaging with their content. And it presents a massive opportunity for folks in the marketplace who understand how to bridge that gap and actually make TV-related content more discoverable. You see some examples there in terms of the types of questions that millennials or other audiences are exposed to that actually lead them to find out more about a show, engage the conversation, and actually watch TV. So a few kind of major trends here that I wanted to talk about. You know, as everybody knows, actual live TV consumption is typically down. This is in the US, but it's indicative of across different markets as well. But at the same time, digital consumption is up. And actually, overall TV consumption, if you include digital, is in most markets moving upwards. So there's this kind of shift, if you will, as most people know, away from live TV towards on-demand and over-the-top. But as importantly, the internet is becoming a much more dominant consumer behavior at the expense of TV. And within internet, obviously, social media is driving the lion's share of that change in consumer time away from live TV towards social. Again, most people understand this implicitly. TV networks understand it implicitly, but they're not allocating their investment in programming dollars to actually connect the dots, if you will, given that if all the discovery and behavior is happening on social, how am I maximizing the opportunities for my TV shows to be discovered on social? Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and others. So this is the big dilemma right now, and it's not just the US, it's the UK, it's across Europe, it's Asia Pac as well, is this mismatch between TV networks and show producers, show companies, investing hundreds of millions of dollars in great TV content, but more often than not, failing to invest the time to make that TV content discoverable across social media. That's the big gap in the marketplace. Now, to be clear, there are many exceptions. There are TV networks like MTV, E! And others who do a much better job of propagating their content. But for the majority of broadcasters right now, this gap between where consumers are spending their time, particularly millennials, and where they're investing their dollars in great TV shows, that offers a really large disruptive opportunity. And that's kind of like one of the other major problems right now, is if you look at the major players like Facebook, like BuzzFeed, Twitter, and others, if you go to their sites, it's very easy to find, but there's no real depth. So for super fans of TV, if they want to go very deep around their favorite TV shows, there's no obvious destination. On the flip side, if you look at players like Tumblr, some of the kind of the blog or microsites, you'll often find a lot of depth. But one of the challenges there is it's much more difficult to find. So as a reference point, we recently looked at the top 20 shows in the UK and the top 20 shows in the US and looked at the top 10 destinations across each of those shows. And what we found was there's a huge fragmentation. There's no one dominant player outside of Facebook. If you're a super fan of The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, the top 10 destinations for that show is completely different to the top 10 destinations for The Voice, American Idol, or other. So as a user, as a super fan of TV, if you want to go to one destination to find all your favorite TV shows, it doesn't exist right now. Again, a very large gap in the marketplace because super fans aren't able to find that one location where all their content is easily discoverable. So the other kind of piece is, what are users looking for? And particularly with millennials, again, just from a TV network DNA perspective, they often are struggling to understand how best to meet those needs, right? So one of those is around, where do I get this daily fix of content? Like, if you are a fan of a show, it's 24/7. You want all the juice, gossip, and information about that show whenever you can get it. But as importantly is this idea of community. So many fans of TV shows want to find a community of other fans. And again, the big gap in the marketplace right now is, if you look at a social network like Facebook, Twitter, or other, they are social networks. They are not social networks for TV, which means most people in the room, if you post to Facebook, you will rarely post to Facebook around the TV show that you're watching. You will rarely tweet to your followers around the TV show that you're watching, because they aren't social networks for TV, they are social networks. So there's a friction in the marketplace where most social networks right now don't allow for this building of community architected just around television. And the third key piece is to make it easy. And this, again, is another major fundamental fail in the marketplace. Most people know what to like on Facebook is, but in the majority of cases, 95% of people on Twitter don't tweet. 85% of people on Facebook don't post on a weekly basis. Why is that? It's because there's friction there. People are reluctant to write 140 characters. So the genius of a Facebook like is it's almost frictionless. You literally just click like and away you go. And the irony is, actually, Facebook has had like around for years, but no one's really capitalized on this premise of frictionless, how to make experiences as easy as possible. And what we found is, the easier you make it for millennials and consumers to engage with TV content, the more likely you'll get contribution and sharing, etc. So I'll share more of that in just a second. But it's a critical point, is make it easy. And too many times, players in the marketplace overcomplicate what needs to be the dominant user experience while watching TV or engaging in conversations around TV. So keep it easy is another big kind of gap in the marketplace right now. And this ultimately kind of raises the question is, given all these gaps, given the fact that TV networks aren't especially adept at this, given the fact that many social networks aren't architected for this, who's meeting these needs? And the answer is nearly no one right now. And this is the big kind of gap in the marketplace, looking at needs and looking at behaviors that I'd like to talk about a little bit more. So this talks to the explosion of data. The bottom line here is that for millennials in particular, it's no longer about actually just viewing passively. It's about actually engaging and creating content. So 65% of this digital explosion is going to come from the creation of content, right? That means for a network, it's not about actually just passively their fans viewing content from the show. Fans would actually shape content or engage in conversation around the show. And that, again, is a mismatch in the marketplace in terms of making that creation of content as simple and as frictionless as possible. So if we think about kind of second screen, which obviously received a lot of press, as mentioned at the start, we used to be called ZBox. We are a second screen app. And I think second screen as an industry is generally one big fail. And one of the biggest reasons for that failure was around the fact, thinking that consumers just want to engage with the second screen when the show is on. The reality is that most fans of TV shows want to engage with those favorite shows 24/7, before the show, during the show, and after, which is kind of why we've learned those lessons from second screen. And similarly with social TV as well. Again, it's a great kind of buzzword, but the reality is, for social TV, most people want more than just a conversation. They want an interactivity with their show. They want to engage with their show in ways that are often not possible right now. So what we're increasingly seeing is this movement towards these 24/7 destinations. And I'll share some examples in just a second. But where most of the amount of growth is going to come from is what we call frictionless fun, frictionless experiences, making it as simple as possible for consumers to engage with content, and then in turn offers a massive monetization opportunity for networks to own more of that conversation, which up until now, they've given away to most of the social networks. So ways in which you can monetize that frictionless fun becomes a very attractive and disruptive revenue stream. So talking about agility, and this is probably one of the more important visuals, if you will, is as we look at this TV ecosystem, what's becoming increasingly clear is there is a major opportunity to take TV-related content from any TV network, from any brand, from any user, by taking that content, placing it through a platform, okay, to make that TV content more socially discoverable across Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and others. And players that can actually crack that code of taking TV-related content and making it socially discoverable have a major opportunity ahead of them. And it's not just a B2C opportunity, it's a B2B opportunity as well. So making that platform available to TV networks and to cable companies and satellite companies would allow them to grow their own audiences on their own .com sites. Amplifying page views, video views, app activity, subscriptions as well. So this is the fundamental premise. You're familiar with BuzzFeed, obviously. And BuzzFeed has done an awesome job of making content more socially discoverable. But think of players who can focus just on TV and make that TV content more socially discoverable. And instead of driving that audience through to BuzzFeed.com, driving that audience through to the TV network's own .com sites so they can monetize the experience. That's the fundamental disruption that's in front of us right now. That makes sense so far? Yeah. So critically as well, TV is just one vertical. If one cracks the code in those two B2C and B2B loops I just described, there are many other related verticals. Think of video from a YouTube perspective. Think of music. Think of entertainment more broadly. There's a far bigger ecosystem that could be monetized if this kind of model is expanded thoughtfully. And so that's like piece one, which is describing this major opportunity around making content more socially discoverable and the upside it presents to players in the TV ecosystem from a monetization perspective. The next piece is once you've actually acquired those audiences to a given .com property, what do you do next? So it's all about engagement. It's not just about magnifying or amplifying a paraffin of lots of different users who crash and burn and disappear immediately. We want to keep bounce rates to a minimum. The question, therefore, is how do you get them to engage with your content when they go to your property? So this, for reference, are the CPCs, okay, so the cost per click across a number of different social media sites, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and others. The average cost per click is 27 cents. That's the cost that a publisher will pay to acquire that user and bring them to their own .com sites. What we're seeing in the marketplace right now are cost per clicks between 1 to 3 cents. That's 1/10 of the cost by using intelligence and algorithms to make content more discoverable. Said another way, we're working with Bravo right now in the US. Bravo, for a given budget of, let's say, $100,000, is able to achieve X in terms of the number of audiences who come to bravotv.com to view video. What this slide says is, for 1/10 of the cost, or for the same budget, 10 times the level of audiences can be brought to bravotv.com if that TV content is made more socially discoverable. And the way that that's done is through that platform I just referenced a second ago. So to show you some real-life examples here, this is Bravo. Okay, so what we've done recently is taken Bravo TV articles, taken those articles, put it through this platform called Beamly Booster, and ultimately, through multiple versions, imagine allocating $1 for each of the versions with different headlines, different calls to action, different images, different videos, etc. Actually allocating the dollars to the best performing version and sending those audience through to bravotv.com. And we've been able to do this at scale across a wide number of campaigns. That's for TV networks. The next example is actually with EastEnders in the UK. And again, it's a similar model. What you see here is the importance of engagement. And you see this element on the left-hand side, it's a centimeter. What it shows real time is how people are voting on who killed Lucy Beale, who's a major character that was killed off in EastEnders recently. And by using these types of engagement elements where you can see real time how other audiences or other fans are voting on who killed Lucy Beale, we found that the CPCs are even lower. So we're introducing a new layer now called engagement to further amplify the level of audience that you bring to a site and the level of sharing and contribution that's possible on your site as well. So the third example is Game of Thrones. And what's interesting here is players like us and others have been able to demonstrate it's not just in English, in French, in Spanish, the example bottom right there, in Japanese, we've been able to demonstrate that the model works equally well. Even just by translating an original English article into those languages, we can bring audiences to HBO.com or to RTL or other at a fraction of the cost that's typically been possible. Fourth example is YouTube, and we've been able to demonstrate it's not just TV. Zoella, she's got 6 million subscribers in the UK. We've been able to take her content, write content around editorial articles, videos, memes, GIFs around that original piece of video, and again, send audiences through to a chosen .com destination. So it proves, therefore, that these types of models can be massively scalable and extensible into other verticals. And that last example is music. If you look at Ariana Grande, Selena Gomez, Miley Cyrus, and others, it works equally well with music. So the whole kind of nut to crack is taking content, making it socially discoverable, and with the increased engagement of audiences around that piece of content, sending them through to a destination of whoever's choosing to drive page views, video views, or other. That's the model. But where it gets particularly interesting is around not just the impact in growth that we've personally seen, but what's possible from an engagement perspective. And I'll share some examples now in just a second. So the first one is really around this idea. I'll skip this over. Is around this idea of what we call a contribution funnel or contribution pyramid. So I mentioned before this idea of a Facebook like. And really the idea here is we found if people make a one-click contribution, they become much more likely to comment, then to share, then to create content, and then to become a super fan or super user. So there's a funnel there to say that a one-click contribution is like a mousetrap. It's like a honeypot. And if you get someone to contribute by liking on Facebook, and I'll share you some examples in just a second, the likelihood that they actually go all the way through to become a super user goes up significantly. So this contribution funnel or pyramid is absolutely critical in understanding how to drive sharing, liking, and contributions for any player in the TV ecosystem. So I'll show you one example of this. This is called a centimeter. If the video works, you're going to see America's Got Talent on the left-hand side, and underneath you'll see audiences voting real time for how they think about it. What's their sentiment? Is it funny? Is it terrible? Is it crap? Is it hilarious? Etc. And this real-time, one-click engagement we found is incredibly powerful to drive votes, interactions, and sharing. So you can see here kind of people voting real time and going nuts about a piece of content. This is an awesome second screen experience, but also works in the context of articles, anything. It's just a great, simple way. And it looks really simple because it is. This has taken 6 months to design. We believe firmly in Darwinism. We drop things that don't work. So we've constantly iterated to come up with the type of experiences we think will perform the best. A centimeter is a great example of that, if the desire is to move people along that curve. And you can see that they're hugely monetizable as well. So it's not just us. There are other players in the marketplace thinking of these one-click contributions, how to make them monetizable in terms of brand integration, and ultimately configuring them very quickly. This other example there for Game of Thrones. So, and it's not just these centimeters. There's a whole kind of menu of things like gaming brackets, prediction games, quizzes, etc., that many players, ourselves included, are now making available for TV networks or for cable operators or telco operators to use on their own .com sites to drive contribution and sharing. This is a real-life example on HBO, probably one of the brands with the greatest cachet. It's Game of Thrones, and they actually chose to work with Beamly, take our gaming bracket and make it available on their own .com site. Why? Because it, again, reflects 18 months of usage data to show what's going to be most effective at driving engagement. For reference, on a web page, the average engagement is 2 to 5%, meaning people who actually do something on the page. We've seen engagement rates of up to 65% by offering these experiences via partners. So a pretty kind of powerful model to help monetize. And I mentioned other players like AOL, HuffPo, Condé Nast are all examples of players in the marketplace who are working with third parties, partners like Beamly, to make these elements embeddable on their own .com sites to drive greater video views, to drive monetization as a whole. So the other kind of key piece is this idea of an embeddable library or menu. And so what we've built, and others are like us as well, we've built an embeddable suite, meaning that any TV network, anyone with a .com property or an app, in a couple of hours can embed these experiences on their own .com sites. And again, the premise isn't Beamly specific. The premise is very powerful, which is how can TV networks regain the conversation around their shows and monetize it effectively, either via social media on their own .com sites. So the lessons we're learning kind of apply to the whole TV ecosystem. And candidly, right now, we've been focused on the US and the UK. Kind of where we're looking to go next is Europe and Latin America, because these opportunities offer themselves in any major territory of how do you drive contribution and sharing. So the last piece is specific monetization. And again, you can kind of imagine that all the elements I've just shared are being monetized by players like us. Another great example is Playbuzz. You guys might not know this, but Playbuzz is the largest publisher on Facebook globally. What they are a quiz engine, an embeddable quiz engine that's actually outpaced BuzzFeed and Huffington Post to become the largest publisher to Facebook globally. It's incredible. Most people don't even know about them. They're an Israeli outfit with about 45 employees and about 70 million uniques. And so this idea, therefore, these embeddable elements being monetizable and of huge strategic value to TV networks is growing a lot of currency. So the question is, how can you further amplify that monetization? And I'll skip over some of these elements, but one takeaway is this idea of these integrated experiences that don't just work when the TV show is on, but work 24/7 across the week. So imagine a brand like Mercedes or L'Oreal or Lexus sponsoring a gaming bracket or a sentiment meter or other. But the fun part is what we call spot sync. And the premise here is everybody wants at the $70 billion US TV market. It's a similarly large number in most markets, save for the UK. But the question is, how do you synchronize experiences on TV with what's going on any other device? And players like ourselves, Civolution and others, have actually begun to crack that code, meaning you can actually monetize the 30-second spot with a synchronized digital experience. So what you'll see here is the end of a Coke ad, the beginning of a L'Oreal ad, and then you'll actually see we use a UID to recognize what the TV ad is, and on any device, on any platform, you can have the synchronized experience. So hopefully this will work.
Believe me, I put this hair through a lot every day. That's why I need Total Repair.
L'Oreal's Total Repair 5 with ceramide fights 5 signs of damage.
Weak, dry, dull, rough hair, and split ends? No way. With L'Oreal Total Repair 5, my hair feels strong, healthy, from root to core to tip. And look at this shine. Crazy.
So I'll skip over the rest of it, but the key takeaway is this. You're familiar with Shazam, obviously, yeah? And Vigil as well. They use, and we used to use what's called ACR, or auto content recognition. The fundamental challenge with that is if I'm watching a 30-second spot, I need an app, first of all, and I need to click on that experience to be taken to an advertiser.com site. Where the market is now going in terms of synchronization is server-side technologies that video fingerprint every single ad so that as soon as it comes on, any show page, Pretty Little Liars, Walking Dead or other, as soon as that 30-second spot comes on, that dedicated show page can recognize that ad and offer a synchronized experience. Server-side technologies offer scale and a way for advertisers and TV networks to monetize this far more effectively than ever before. So really the last slide are these 3 hows and the kind of the takeaways, therefore, in terms of how we're thinking about the marketplace and hopefully players in the TV ecosystem are as well. So first of all is kind of how effectively are TV networks and distributors packaging their content to make it most discoverable on social. Most people are failing at that fundamentally right now, as we're seeing by that big arbitrage opportunity from a clickability or from a click-through perspective. Second of all is engagement. So you've done a great job acquiring them. How are you converting those people into actually downloading your app, activating your existing app base, driving subscriptions or other? So the more successful you can be in terms of actually driving engagement on your own property or on social media greatly amplifies the likelihood of you achieving your goal of video views, of app downloads or subscriptions. And then lastly is sales, is how are you actually monetizing this? How does it all come together? And these elements combined offer a disruptive way to revisit kind of what's happening in the marketplace right now and take advantage of these changing consumer behaviors. Millennials, it's beginning with, but those millennial behaviors are becoming pervasive across other audience segments to maximize monetization for a given business. So that's it. Thank you.